Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So this is part 3 for theories for CSR. So in part 2, I think saya ada tinggal 2 lagi slide. Sebab masa tu dah cukup 15 minutes. But you can always refer to the original slide to see what are the 2 remaining slides. Yeah. Okay. So the third theory is the institutional theory. This is actually to complement legitimacy theory and also stakeholder. Okay, so this is the institutional theory will provide explanation about why organizations tend to take on similar characteristic, form and processes for similar reporting practices. So from this theory, you will see why in the industry, the way the companies in that industry in providing voluntary disclosures are similar. Alright. Okay. So so under this theory, you will see companies tend to choose similar reporting forms in order to bring legitimacy to the organization. Okay, so companies in the same industry, they follow each other because they want to be rewarded for doing so through increased legitimacy, resources and survival capabilities. Alright, so this institutional theory will complement both legitimacy theory and stakeholder theory. So we have here the institutional theory. The institution here means regulative, normative and cultural cognitive elements that together with associated activities and resources provide stability and meaning to social life. This is the definition of an institution. Right? So I think you know what is an institution. Alright, so an organization is actually an institution, because you will see that institutions, they are comprised of regulative, normative and cultural cognitive elements. You will see management, you will see the employees and so on, and they have rules, yeah, that everybody in that institution need to follow. So the institutional theory will link organizational practices to society values. Okay, so here you will see that the organizational form for voluntary disclosures tends to be homogeneous. Yeah, all right, because if you have 100 companies in one industry, so you will see that they are following each other. So this theory will explain which company will be followed. All right, because here, if there is any company that is actually deviate or differentiate from other company, they will have problems in terms of gaining or maintaining legitimacy. So there are certain ways of doing things which are seen as legitimate, and they become institutionalized. They become accepted as legitimate. Right? So once the process becomes institutionalized, they effectively become beyond the discretion of individuals and organizations. All right. Here we have formal organizational structures and practices might be considered by society as legitimate. All right, but it does not necessarily mean that they are the most efficient choice in terms of technical efficiency. So the organization will conform to institutionalized approach by building gaps or buffers between the formal structures. Yeah. So these formal structures and procedures of an organization will be projected to others, and therefore it becomes it will reflect the rationalized institutional rules of the wider institutional environment. Yeah? So something like the the status of the organization's legitimacy reflect how well the company fit into the industry within the environment. So there are this isomorphism and decoupling are two dimensions of institutional theory. Okay, so isomorphism refers to a constraining process that forces one unit in a population to resemble other units that face the same set of environmental conditions. So the company morph into the environment. Okay, they try to resemble other units that face the same set of environmental conditions. So there are three different isomorphic processes. The first one is coercive, second one is mimetic, and the third one is normative. So coercive, this is where a company is being pressured from the stakeholder to change their institutional practices. All right. So this is actually related to managerial branch of stakeholder theory because they have to meet the expectation of the powerful stakeholder. So because of powerful stakeholder might have similar expectation of other organization, they will tend to be conformity to follow the practices, the same practices across organization. That include their reporting practices. So we can consider World Bank, has been able to influence reporting practices in developing countries. So the banks in developing countries, they have no choice but to follow whatever expectation from World Bank, because World Bank is very powerful in the banking industry. Okay, so under mimetic isomorphism, there's no force, there's no coercive pressure from stakeholders, right? They actually because it is very unlikely that you have been forced to copy others. This is actually no force, no coercive pressures. So what about normative? Normative is because they want to they've been pressured, they've been forced by the group norms to adopt particular institutional practices. For example, particular groups with particular training will tend to adopt similar practices. If there is non-compliance, that could result in sanctions being imposed by the group. So this theory provides rationale for why reporting approach and other corporate processes tend to take on similar form. So the outcome of isomorphism, either coercive, mimetic, or norms, there's tendency toward a similar corporate structure and processes. And isomorphic process do not necessarily make the organization more efficient, because the reason why they adopt a particular practice, if it is actually coercive because they have been pressured by powerful stakeholder, if it is mimetic because they want to gain advantage, if it is norms because they want to be seen as at par and with other companies. So decoupling, this is where a company choose a totally different reporting approaches from the majority of companies in the same industry. All right, so there is a need to be seen to be adopting particular structures and practices for voluntary reporting from the formally sanctioned and publicly pronounced processes and practices. So if there are any practices and processes which has been announced as bad practices, so company need to decouple themselves, stay away from that practice. practices. So for example here, the organizational image, constructed through corporate reports and other disclosures, might be one of social and environmental responsibility, when the actual managerial imperative is actually to maximize profit or shareholder value. Okay, so if you look at here, if you look at the three theories, there are overlapping explanation here for the three theories. So what you should do is try to do questions at the end of the chapter and see how you try to explain the theory and use it to explain voluntary disclosures.